Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead Aherne. Today's top stories: Waterford Institute of Technology is still waiting to submit their application for technological university status. A Waterford TD says it was profoundly shocking that some nursing homes were using painters' overalls for personal protective equipment. The quality of water at Waterford's main beaches has been classed as good or excellent for the second year in a row. And in sport, the manager of Tramore Racecourse says they'll have strict procedures in place for the return of racing. Waterford Institute of Technology say they're continuing to work on their application for redesignation as a technological university. It comes as the government has given plans for the Munster Technological University, a merger of Cork IT and IT Tralee, the green light. The application for the South East TU hit a stumbling block last June when a memorandum of understanding agreed by management at WIT and IT Carlow was rejected by unions in Carlow. The Vice President for Strategy at WIT, Richard Hayes, told Damien Tiernan on Data today that they haven't submitted the application yet.
We haven't applied for it yet. We've committed that we will not apply for it over the heads of our staff, and we need to have in place a memorandum of understanding with our staff that reassures them as to the terms, conditions and the future shape of the organisation so that everybody is on board. And as I said, we secured a very positive outcome in WIT when we presented that understanding to our academic staff. And I should add, we also have the support of the other unions in the Institute. And Carlo have presented it to their staff.
And has that been agreed with them?
But 10 or 11 months ago, as I said, they did not get a positive response to their proposal.
He says he can't say when the South East TU will happen.
I don't think it would be fair to put a date on the table and say it's going to happen then or it's going to happen, to put a date on the table. These are very, very complex and difficult and fraught negotiations that have to take place to bring everybody along on board with us. The staff are the substance of the organisation, not the management. The success of WIT to date and the future success of the TU will be built on the staff, so they have to be on board.
A Waterford TD says Nursing Homes Ireland was crying out for help on an almost daily basis. The group that represents private nursing homes was appearing before the Oireachtas Special Committee on COVID-19. Sinn Féin's David Culnan says it was profoundly shocking that some homes were using painters' overalls for personal protective equipment. He focused on the opening statement of CEO of Nursing Homes Ireland, Tig Daly.
That key state organisations left the nursing home sector and its residents isolated in those early days. The dismay will live with us. That's a very, very strong statement to make. So it strikes me that you were very, very disappointed and indeed angry with the state actors here that they didn't respond despite all of the phone calls, all of the emails, all of the correspondence, all of the yellow flags, all of the red flags that were being raised, that your organisation and its members and those in nursing homes were not given the human and financial resources that they required because there was an absence of a plan.
Tig Daly says we didn't pay enough attention to the care needs of those in residential settings.
Did you feel let down, Mr Daly? Is that the frustration?
I don't think it's about me.
No, but did you feel it on behalf of your members this is about patients in the nursing home.
This is about residents. Absolutely.
So did you feel that those patients were let down?
I do. I think that as a society we didn't pay enough attention to the care needs of those in residential care.
Meanwhile, independent Waterford TD Matt Shanahan's calling for antibody testing of patients in nursing homes.
If we know that 4 out of 5 residents who have come into contact with COVID have survived it, we assume that the science is not exact, but we know certainly that they have antibodies for a period of time. Is it possible that we could look at antibody testing to try and identify those nursing home patients and allow them to have access to their family relatives rather than continue to be locked down?
Here's Tig Daly again.
Yeah, I mean, again, on the issue of easing visitor restrictions, we've made a paper to NEFIT as well, and that, I believe that's for discussion on Thursday. But yes, clearly we've come through a very difficult period, and what we now need to look at, I concur, Deputy, is to look at solutions so that we can move to the next phase, because clearly the visitor restrictions are having an impact on residents.
There was just one confirmed case of COVID-19 at University Hospital Waterford last night. 3 patients were awaiting the results of testing as of 8 o'clock. The HSC's daily operations update also showed no confirmed or suspected cases in UHW's critical care unit. Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary believes the government should accelerate the easing of COVID-19 restrictions, saying the Irish people deserve it. It comes as the Chief Medical Officer meets with senior ministers to discuss the latest coronavirus developments, as Stephanie Rowan reports.
It's becoming hard to remember a time when we didn't have to think twice about going to a shop. COVID-19 restrictions have become part of our lives, but Michael O'Leary thinks it's now time for them to be eased further. The Ryanair boss points to the declining number of cases and no deaths being recorded on Monday. He says the government's phased roadmap should be reduced from 3 weeks to 2.
We've done a remarkable job. The Irish people deserve to be rewarded with a modest speeding up of the measures that are emerging out from this lockdown. I don't understand why Tony Holohan and the health authorities don't follow Professor Luke O'Neill's advice or the ECDC advice. Wear more face masks in public. I think the public would support that, and that will allow everybody go back flying, go back shopping, go back to the hairdressers. If that's what the women of Ireland want to do, wear face masks.
Labour leader Alan Kelly also thinks the easing of restrictions should be sped up.
I think we're going to have to look at aspects of how we change the roadmap, and aspects of it are going to have to be pulled forward.
It comes as government ministers meet with the Chief Medical Officer Tony Holohan this lunchtime to discuss the latest developments. The restrictions and the 2-metre social distancing rule will be top of the agenda as pressure mounts from businesses to help them survive.
Waterford MEP Grace O'Sullivan insists a new EU recovery plan from COVID-19 will not lead to more austerity. This afternoon, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will outline the €500 billion package. It's on top of the €540 billion recovery plan that's already been agreed by member states. Green Party MEP Grace O'Sullivan says Ireland will benefit greatly.
It's a broad stimulus plan. They're looking very much at post-COVID and looking at areas where we can build resilience because we've seen, even here in Ireland, how vulnerable we are when it comes to our energy security, energy supply. But we must recognise this as a stimulus plan. It's not a pushback into austerity.
Exports of Irish beef to China have been temporarily suspended because of a case of atypical BSE. The Department of Agriculture says it was detected in a 14-year-old cow. The department says it has voluntarily suspended beef exports to China until further notice. IFA President Tim Cullinan says it's a big concern.
Obviously it's disappointing, but my understanding is it's a technical issue. As one 14-year-old cow, just a once-off incident. Obviously the department now has to do a report for the Chinese authorities, and hopefully it'll be a matter of weeks and this issue can be cleared up.
The quality of the water at Waterford's main beaches has been classed as good or excellent for the second year in a row. Ardmore, Clonea, Tramore and both beaches in Dunmore East have been given an excellent rating by the Environmental Protection Agency, while Bunmahon is classed as good. Waterford Council carries out testing for the EPA at 20 bathing areas from June to September. The local authority's directors for roads, water and environmental services is Fergus Galvin.
The larger beaches and the most heavily visited beaches all would have excellent water quality and have had that consistently over the last number of years. In many cases, that's down to, I suppose, a lot of work by the council in previous years and more recently by Irish Water in upgrading wastewater treatment facilities in, say, the likes of Ardmore very recently, which regained its blue flag beach status there the year before last, and Dunmore East, where significant work was done a couple of years ago, which has helped to improve the water quality.
2 Waterford projects will be hoping to be recognised at the national final of the Student Enterprise Programme. The awards were due to take place at Croke Park on the 1st of May and instead will be announced virtually this afternoon. An eco-friendly stationery enterprise called Downright Good from Our Lady of Mercy Secondary School in Waterford is the county's intermediate entry. Rooted Solution from St Augustine's College in Dungarvan are in the running in the senior category. Sean Dunford explains what their project is all about.
We came up with the idea because we all have a love for the environment and we wanted to do something to help it. So we came up with the idea for tree sapling sold in a decomposable bag, and the bag, you would be able to plant it in the ground with the bag to make planting the trees 10 times easier. Also, as the bag biodegrades, it provides nutrients for the tree and also protects the roots underground.
WLR Sport, Ireland's local station of the year.
Starting with horse racing, where action will return to Tramore in July. An afternoon national hunt meeting is set for Tramore on July 18th and an evening meeting on July 25th. Both race meetings will be held behind closed doors, and manager Owen Byrne says there'll be a number of protocols in place.
When you arrive at the races, it'll only be staff of trainers. Owners aren't allowed at the moment, unfortunately, so it's really only officials and people who are looking after the horses. So a person will arrive in, they'll show an AIR card, which is our access card for racing. If you're not scheduled to have a runner there on that day, you won't be allowed in. The second part of that is a health screen. So the health screening is filled in 24 hours before you arrive at the races. Once you're approved, you'll get a barcode sent to you. You present that barcode, it's scanned, and then you proceed through to a temperature further screening.
To soccer, where Premier League teams are now able to train as a group in full contact sessions. This after shareholders voted unanimously to move on to the next stage of Project Restart. Meanwhile, Noel Quinn is set to meet with some League of Ireland players to discuss their concerns around the delay to finalise plans for return to action. The 4 Irish clubs that have qualified for Europe all underwent COVID-19 testing this week, and the first step on the way to getting back. The Irish Independent reports that the FAI's interim deputy CEO will hold a conference call with the players on Friday. While in tennis, professional tennis will return to the UK at the start of July. The LTA's announced it'll put on 4 3-day tour events that will take place behind closed doors at the UK's National Tennis Centre in Roehampton. Each tournament will be open to 32 players, 16 men and 16 women. WLR asking you to stay at home. Our next bulletin is at 2.